This is part 2 of my story. If you haven't listened to part 1, then please stop this one and listen to that part before this one because it has the beginning, and beginnings usually ignite the spark. If you listen to the first part, then I hope that you have felt that spark. This comes from a hidden truth within us all. Finding mine, finding yours, finding ours. These all come together to kindle the fire of compassion, love and care, and dedication to higher purposes. Life has more than just being alive. Eating, sleeping, going to work. Life is a journey with value. I am Manal Zainuddin. Welcome to my podcast. This podcast serves to highlight education communities from macro and micro angles, leadership, learning, personal and professional growth, stories, interviews, talks, projects, and more coming up from around this globe. Extending through this podcast Plutarch's famous quote that I had posted in all the places I have worked in. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. Throughout the years during which I worked as a teacher and then a director, there was always this tendency and urge to connect the dots. School to me was never only a building, individuals walking around getting their tasks done, and rejoicing at the thought of summer vacations. It was never only a set of books and teachers' guides, never only lesson plans and test papers, and most importantly, never only a salary at the end of every month. Seeing some processes incomplete and fragmented, some staff members overwhelmed and confused, insufficient and sometimes irrelevant material made the entire picture more lucid and even more self-assertive. I started observing very closely the schools I worked in, schools in the region, and schools around the world, with whatever means possible. Experience the tangible, the schools I worked in, and read about those outside my circle and my region. I also observed individuals and processes, including myself, my own self. I had to understand what was part of my life as a parcel of thoughts, emotions, attitudes, behaviors, mingled with the life around me. That was another eye-opening lesson. Seeing a school as a microcosm of the whole world. Within school walls, there were stories of achievement and stories of disappointments, scenarios of goodness and scenarios of greed, tales of joy and those of sorrow. And they were not only about the schools themselves, but the entire communities. They were collections from here and there, in and out. It was a tight knot of collective human psychology. It was nobody's fault. Everyone was part of this knot. Everyone needed guidance and support, including myself. That need to connect the dots urged me from an early stage in my career to visualize processes as complete solved puzzles, backwards thinking. I would reflect upon those pieces of the puzzle and then start fitting in pieces accordingly. It was so intricate, but that recurring practice led me to a remarkable discovery. That school cannot be truly successful, or at least will find it very difficult to create happy, energetic, and fruitful school community if there was no clarity, no authentic collaboration, and no sense of curiosity for growth. Almost all institutions around the world have a well-written school statement, vision, mission, objectives, and values, and this is fundamental in setting policies, regulations, and protocols, which will later direct the daily and yearly goals towards achievement. However, there were gaps in the way operations were executed, and consequently in the overall environment of the schools. Connecting school statement with a well-structured, well-monitored and assessed system of operations, engaging all stakeholders effectively and genuinely so that they can collectively steer the institutions as they heed this power within themselves and pave their way towards the same purposes, which will lead to the higher purpose, that of the stakeholders, achievement and well-being of stakeholders. That's climate and culture. The lesson I learned and implemented as a director for years, first-hand experience. Staff, learners, parents were all in harmony. Whether I was present or not, everyone knew what to do and how to navigate. All were leaders of themselves. Amazingly rewarding. Related to that were issues of budgets. As a director, I had the responsibility of ensuring that resources were always available. And when that was difficult in certain conditions, I was curious to investigate business concepts. After all, schools needed budgets to operate, and this is a fact. Connecting that to educational operations and values, I discovered that what is known in business as value chain must be reframed in the education field in order not to distort the uniqueness of this industry as called in the world of business and economy. We cannot deny that education, just like any service, involves expenses and generates revenue, but the scope of values should be different. What is primary in education should be stakeholders in every sense of the word. I started asking myself questions. How can we achieve gains for all stakeholders? School owners and investors who desire to collect with revenue and keep stakeholders as their priority. Stakeholders and shareholders in one boat, genuinely cooperating, not conflicting. There can always be ways to do that. The first step is being authentic to the higher purpose. And again, no fault finding. We are here to mend, build, and embellish, but never to destroy or cause a crack. I always fostered reading, and in one of the schools I worked in as a director, getting an online reading comprehension quiz program was not possible. I strove to encourage children to read, and I wanted them to excitedly participate in reading. So I designed a program and I called it Read, Read, and Read, which was the simplest yet manually uneasy way to track children's reading. I announced the program and everybody was excited. All they were told to do was to bring a book they had read at home and they would be asked quick comprehension questions. Points were to be recorded on an Excel sheet and shared at the end of every month with the school community. I did not want to burden teachers with this time-consuming, attention-demanding task, so I was handling it all by myself. I cannot forget how happy children were, knocking at my office door during recess with little books grabbed dearly to their chests and smiling at me. They were there for the quiz. I would leave whatever I was doing, even my breakfast sandwich, to go out in front of my office. I am blessed with quick reading, skimming at a faster than normal rate, so I would take the book from them, although I hadn't read it before, and would quickly go over a few pages, grab an idea and ask a question about it. I could do that for up to grade 5 level books. With higher level books, I would take a quick look through the pages and ask general questions. Taking each child at a time, simply looking at him or her, speaking fluently, with few cognitive tricks that I usually do, I could easily tell if the learner had read the book. That was all that I wanted. I would grant them the points. I never gave them the impression that I would grant them the points though. Sometimes I did play the suspense game with a point missed and 2 more gained, but always managed to keep it a win-win. Each would leave looking so excited, grabbing the book even closer to his or her chest, as if they were holding a treasure box. They were happy with the points, and I was happy that I created a lifelong learner. I would rush back to my office, quickly record their points on that Excel sheet, and then continue to eat my sandwich. There is a Lebanese proverb that says, "A pebble can support a barrel." Even little efforts can go a long way. That's another lesson, never underestimating what we can do for our communities. Dr. Dyer, the renowned author and speaker, says in one of his talks, one of my favorites, "Don't die with your music still in you. All of you have some music playing. All of you have heroic missions. There are no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it. And too many of us are afraid to listen to that music and march to it. All of us feel something. And in Leo Tolstoy's famous novel, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, he asked this question that would be terrifying to me. He says, as he has this accountant from Moscow lying on his deathbed, contemplating the horror of this question, what if my whole life has been wrong? Whoever you are, whatever that music is, however distant it may sound, however strange, however weird others may interpret it to be, don't get to the end of your life and know that you're going to leave and not haven't played it yet. Don't die with your music still in you. 7+ billions of people live on planet Earth. In this end of the second decade of the century, 7.8 this September 2020, as estimated most recently by the United Nations. Everyone can do something, no matter how insignificant it might be. Know that there is always at least one person waiting to hear your word, watch your kind, brave act, and even give you a helping hand. There is always climate and culture. All we have to do is tune into it. Thank you for taking time to listen to the second part of my story. That has been the scenario for the past 20 years as well, and I am certain every one of you has his own. And yes, we are still here, still discussing, debating, measuring, and evaluating. The process will not stop because life itself is a journey. I would love if you stay tuned for the third and last part of my story in my next episode, as I finish setting the stage background for fundamental topics that will be introduced in the upcoming episodes. Until next time, let us keep this open-ended and drop a question for all of us to ponder. If you could change an aspect in education to give it more value, what would that be?